walked up all these steps to a shrine. And even then, some would say this is a Shinto shrine. But even then, the people who go there might not even believe in a god. It's almost like, sometimes they pray almost to like pep themselves up, to like, you know, it's like a good mental thing to like prepare them for something. And their religion kind of begins and ends with these shrines. They'll walk up all these steps to these big shrines because the more steps you walk up, like the more holy the place is. And they'll just walk up, and their prayers aren't even like talking to a god. Their prayers consist of this. They walk up to the shrine, there's a little wooden box in front of this shrine, and they throw money in and go, and that's how they pray. That's their whole prayer. And they think that maybe the god in that shrine will give them some sort of power, some of them. Others just do it for the pure mental, like, okay, yeah, I can do this now. And so here's some statistics on religion in Japan. Folk Shinto, or no religion. Folk Shinto is like what I just described, climbing up a bunch of steps to clap at a shrine. Or no religion, 51.8%. Buddhism, which Buddhism here, or Buddhism in Japan is kind of like Christianity here. You know, you can meet a lot of people out on the street who are like, yeah, I believe in Jesus. I'm a Christian, but they don't really go to church or do anything. They might not even read the Bible. That's like Buddhism in Japan. There are lots of Buddhists who put food in front of these little shrines in their house every morning, but that's it. Like, there were some people, you know, I've talked before about how I've studied Buddhism. There were some people I talked to who were like, well, you know more about Buddhism than I do. And at first I was like, no, I don't. That's so funny. And then I found out, no, I really do. I know more about their religion than they do. So those are the statistics. Organized Shinto, which is like, you know, you actually go and know about what kind of God you're worshiping and things like that, 4%. Christianity is 2.3%, and no answer is 7%. And Christianity up there includes anything. You're a Mormon, you believe in Jesus, you're a Christian. You know, anything. Anything that believes in Jesus is considered a Christian. 2.3%. And it's weird because there's lots of like Christian things in their culture. Like most of them celebrate Christmas, but the way they celebrate Christmas is like hanging out with their girlfriend and eating KFC. The lines at KFC in Japan on Christmas literally back out the door and down the street. Because they don't know that it's like they don't know what it's about. They don't understand why we've started this holiday of Christmas and the history behind it. They just know it's an American holiday, and since it's an American holiday, you should probably eat in an American restaurant like KFC. And it's so big that KFC will even deliver on Christmas. But they don't know. And so I talked to people and they're like, well, why do you celebrate Christmas? And some people, there was an art exhibition while we were in town, and they brought me like flyers from the art exhibition, and it was like, you know, Mary holding the little baby Jesus, and I had so many questions about that. They were like, so why is Jesus blonde? I thought Jesus was from Israel. And I was like, yeah, it's European art, I think it's okay. So we had to explain a lot of things because they have all these weird misconceptions about Christianity in their society because of all these weird things they do. Like, we don't eat KFC on Christmas, and Jesus wasn't blonde. So, yeah, well, he could have been, I don't know. But probably not. He's from Israel. So this is what we did. We went over, you've heard about LST trips before. We used the little Luke workbooks that we used in Nicaragua last year, and we just went and we read English with them. The whole premise of LST is to practice your English, your speaking conversational skills. And so we went to a place called Nakata. And Nakata means the middle of the rice field. And it's a little like ward of this bigger city called Shizuoka. So it's like Brooklyn to New York. And the church there was tiny, absolutely tiny. And so people think, you know, people worry and like, oh, the churches are getting small. We have no idea what a small church looks like. people might consider a small church 25 people on a Sunday morning. The Nakata Church of Christ that we went to had averaged about 6 people on a Sunday morning, not including us. So, yeah, we stayed in a little house behind the Nakata Church of Christ, and I had 2 team members go with me. It was Tori Davis and Catherine Mims. Tori and Catherine come sometimes, but they live out of town. So yeah, we were at the Nakata Church of Christ, and like I said, it averaged about 6 people on a Sunday morning. So this is actually one of the church members. His name is Ikagaya. And Ikagaya was a really cool guy. He took us a lot of different places, and he tried to be involved with us, and he read with us. He was at all the LST parties, and we'll get to what those are all about in a minute. But anyway, the point is to sit down and talk about Christianity with people to help them practice their conversational English. So we both kind of get something out of it. Like they come study English with us, and we talk to them about the Bible. We had a lot of interesting conversations. This man's name is Oishi Takatoshi. He was one of Catherine's readers. You can try to guess how old he is. I thought he was about 59, 58. He was actually like 72. So yeah, the Japanese look a lot younger than they actually are. And he was one of our readers. He was a practicing Buddhist. He knew a lot about Buddhism. He had a lot of questions about Christianity. Like I said, the weird misconceptions. One day he was talking to us and was like, well, it's very sad that you can't have Buddhist friends. We're like, no, we can have Buddhist friends. And he's like, oh, well, it's very sad that you can't go to the weddings of your Buddhist friends. We're like, well, we can. And he's like, oh, so you can't go to their funerals? We're like, no, we can go to their weddings, we can go to their funerals, all of that is fine. And so he was very interested, and he would talk to us about a lot of stuff. But a lot of our readers were older, and they kind of thought what we were talking about was like a fairy tale. They thought it was very hard to believe, even though there's a lot of stuff in their own culture that's like very just out there and also hard to believe. Some of their stories, like they believe in Shinto, the folk religion, teaches that like 2 gods came down from the sky, and when their feet touched the waters of the earth, the Japanese islands came up out of the ocean. And so they had no problem with that, but when we talked about, God creating the earth in 7 days, they're like, that's not true. Or Jesus coming back from the dead, they're like, that's so strange. It's like a fairy tale. So a lot of them were very interested in English, and a lot of them were very interested in Jesus' teachings and trying to understand like the Western mindset, but most of them thought it was something like a fairy tale. Another thing that kind of added an urgency, I think, is most of our readers were older. Our like average age was probably 65. And most of our readers were like repeat readers. They had been coming back. Well, not most of them, but a significant amount had been coming back year after year. Oishi Takatoshi here, he has been coming to LST for 12 years. Yeah. And so it's sad, and we prayed a lot about it, and it's stressful sometimes because they're older, and they're getting up there in their age, even though the average Japanese age is like 87 or something crazy like that. But they're getting older, and they're getting closer to the end of their life, and it's like you're hearing this, you're sitting there listening to the gospel, and you don't believe it, and that can be really stressful sometimes. And so we just try to talk to them, but it's very hard for them because also since they are older. I had one lady named Tamae. And Tamae was one of the ones, she liked to come in, she liked to blow through the lesson, she liked to talk about America. When the whole Confederate flag thing happened, the shooting in North Carolina, she came in, she tried to get through the lesson in like 5 minutes and just wanted to talk about that the whole time. And so I would try to push her, and I'd try to talk to her about religion, and I'd ask her about religion. And Tamae was one of those Buddhists who just had a shrine in her house, and every morning she'd leave rice there for Buddha, and that was the extent of her knowledge about Buddhism. She's like, well, I know I'm supposed to leave rice for him. and that's it. And so we talk about Christianity, and I tell her, well, Jesus died for your sins, and, Buddhism teaches you have to work, but Christianity says you can never be good enough, and, Jesus did all these things for us, and that's why we need to believe in him. And so I realized something talking to her, because you could see it in her eyes, and it was our last lesson. I was really pushing her. I was like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And so in our last lesson, she just looked at me, and she said, my husband was 69 years old when he died, and I don't know when I'm going to see him again, but I believe somehow I'm going to see him again. And I don't know where that will be or how that will be, but I know I will see him. And so it kind of hit me, for these older people to accept what we're saying might mean to accept that they will never see that person that they want to see so badly again. For us, it gives us a little bit of hope, because a lot of us have lost people close to us, but, a lot of us have lost Christian people close to us. We can think one day we'll be with them again, but they don't have that. And so that was something very hard to talk about for them. But we did talk about it, and we tried to push through it, and we tried to explain things to them. We did a service project, and another weird thing is a lot of Japanese kids go to Christian schools. And they just go to Christian schools because they have good education systems. And so they'll learn a little bit about the Bible, but they won't learn a whole lot. And they'll just go to these Christian schools, and they'll be exposed to it a little bit, but they won't ever believe. They'll still be Buddhist or Shinto or whatever, and still go to these Christian schools. So this was a Christian school we went to. The preacher at the church there in Nakata actually taught Old Testament history at this school, and so he brought us in as our service project to talk to them about Christianity in America, and so we tried to explain some things to them. It was a little bit like reverse Latin America, and it kind of made me uncomfortable. The Latin America guys really like the American girls, and I walked in and all these little Japanese girls were really excited to see me. So I was a little bit taken aback by that. But so we talked to them about America and Christianity, and we tried to tell them when we got baptized, and how we've been doing in our faith since then. And so I think it helped them understand a little bit more. Another big problem you have in Japan is that when you talk to people, you say, okay, God does this, or God does that, or God did this, or God did that, and they're like, oh, okay, God did that. And they're like, okay, and they just accepted some of this stuff. And you're like, okay, and you talk to them a little bit more, and you figure out that they just think our God is another one of all the gods, because they have thousands of gods. They have gods for everything. I sat down and talked to a girl one time, and I was like, so you believe there's a God for everything? And she's like, yes. And so I pushed her on it. I was like, so do you think there's a God for email? And she's like, probably. Probably. It's like, do you think there's a God for unsent email? She's like, maybe. Maybe. It's like, do you think there's a God for emails that never were received? And she's like, I'm not sure. So finally I got her on that one. But they literally do believe there's a God for everything, and they build shrines all over the place. That shrine I had a picture of earlier is a shrine to basically the Japanese George Washington. His name's Tokugawa Ieyasu, and he was the first shogun of Japan, and he united Japan under one government. And they built a shrine to him after he died, and they think that his spirit dwells there, and that he has become a god, and now his spirit lives at that shrine. They think there's a deity of Mount Fuji, and they have all sorts of shrines to the god of Mount Fuji, and they think that, I think it's a she, because they always refer to Mount Fuji as a she. And so they think that she lives in all these different shrines. And we went to a bunch of them, and then sometimes there's shrines in shrines. We went to a shrine of Mount Fuji, and there's a little shrine to the god of the dogs, There's like a little dog shrine there, God for dogs. Then there's like another little shrine off of that that was specifically the god of the water that comes off of Mount Fuji. And so that was really interesting. We did have some younger readers. Her name is Aoi, and she was really fun. She lived in America for a long time, and she spoke perfect English, without even a hint of an accent. So we got to talk about a lot of deep things. And one thing that's really sad is Japan is a very male-dominated society. But they'll never just tell you, oh yeah, that's how it is here. We're a male-dominated society. It's like kind of under the radar. Like you've really got to dig deep to see that, like, yeah, men are really in charge here. And so this little girl, her mom was very interested in Christianity. And this is actually at the church. They came to the church the first Sunday they were there, but her dad did not like it. And they did not come back. And we had several readers like that. The mom and her children wanted to come and learn more, but the dad was not having it. He would not let them come back. We had one reader, Catherine had a reader, and I had her daughter. And their names were Erica and Momoko. And Momoko went to church with her grandparents somewhere. The grandparents used to take Erica's son, but her in-laws decided that they didn't like that, and so they told Erica that her parents couldn't take her son to church anymore because they didn't like that. And the father's side is always dominant, so her son couldn't go to church anymore. And Erica's husband did not like that she was going to come to church. She came to church one Sunday too, and she never came back. So that's a very serious problem there as well, is that a lot of the men are just in charge and they don't want their wives doing this, so they just don't do it. This is one of our, I don't like to say favorite, but this is one of the readers we spent the most time with. Her name was Asako. This is actually in Tokyo Tower. You've seen like the Eiffel Tower light thing in Tokyo. Asako actually volunteered to like take us all over Tokyo. And so she was like our little Tokyo guide for the day. And we went to Tokyo Tower, and Tori and Catherine were just like, nah, we don't want to go up. So I was like, we're here, we gotta go to the top. And so Asako went to the top with me. And so that's a picture of us at the top of Tokyo Tower. So Asako was very interested in Christianity, but she was interested in what Jesus had to say, but not in who Jesus was. There's another weird thing with young people, and there's a very big social problem in Japan that young people are kind of like loners, and they just kind of do their own thing, and they don't make a lot of friends. They have video games and electronics and all these other things to like shut themselves off them, and you think it's bad, you know, when your teenage son's texting at the dinner table, well, they like just shut themselves off, and they just like make that their lives, video games and stuff. And so a big thing there is counseling. And Asako told me she always wanted to come and meet Oprah Winfrey and have her like talk to her and like just talk through her problems with her. And so that was a big thing. And she heard that Jesus was kind of like a counselor, so she wanted to know more about him and his teachings. And so we talked a lot about that. And so I'd tell her what it really meant, and I'd explain to her who Jesus really was. And I remember one night we were standing outside the church. I think we were getting ready to go to dinner. We dragged Asako a lot of places with us because she'd work at a green tea farm and then not do anything the rest of the day. So we were like, Asako, you've got to go do this with us. You've got to go like eat dinner with us. You've got to go do whatever with us. And so she ended up going a lot of places with us. And one night we were standing outside the church and she said, you really believe in this? And I said, yeah, I do. And she said, interesting. And that was all I got out of her. But we had lots of talks. There's one lesson in the Luke workbooks that's, it talks about the different grounds and the seeds that fall on the different grounds. So I talked to her and I said, you know, what ground are you? Are you the good ground? Are you the ground where the seed all got pecked up? Do you think you're the thorny ground? What ground do you think you are? And she said, well, I think I'm either the good ground or the ground where all the seed got pecked up. It's like, okay, that's interesting. But she did say that she thought the good ground was like the goal. So that was interesting. And so I hope, she keeps studying and something happens there. She's very interested in English and America, and I told her, we live stream Devos at the Christian Student Center, so hopefully she can watch that. But she's just very interesting and just fun to be around. One of the things, another part of our project was parties. And so we do like LST parties, and we invite people from the neighborhood and our readers and church members to all come together, and we play games and have food, and they'd all have different things. We do like a Hawaiian party. One night we did an American party. And this was our graduation party. So these were our readers that graduated, and they came and had a party with us. And then some of the families from the neighborhood. We tried to get this family to come to church. They were just a really nice family. They lived next door to the church. And then these were their friends, and they did go to church somewhere else. I forget what church they went to. And then there's the preacher and his wife back there. And there's Ikagaya. And there's Sato. Yeah, that was our last party, is our graduation party. So that was our trip. So we got to go and we got to talk to people about God, and there's a really big need for it because, like I said, only 2.3% of them are Christians. And I know that we were just planting seeds. We were just planting seeds, and I know that hopefully, hopefully someone else, there will be an LST team next year, so more people are going to go and water this seed. And I want to go back. I want to do that. I want to go and teach English somewhere. And so this next year, I'm going to be working on a way where I can go to Japan and I can work there and teach there. So I'll finish with my favorite story. This is one of the best reading sessions that I had. I have a reader named Akiko. And Akiko came in and she spoke literally zero English. She did not speak any English at all. And we read through the Luke workbook one day, and she got through maybe an eighth of a lesson, which you're supposed to be able to get through a whole lesson. She got through an eighth of a lesson. And so then we got a really simple, like, children's Genesis book. And she got through maybe a fourth of that lesson with the help of the preacher. The preacher spoke some English and could help us translate. And so one day she came and the preacher wasn't there to help translate, and we were just struggling through a lesson. I speak a little bit of Japanese, but not nearly enough to do these lessons. And so I was trying to work through this lesson with her, and she just wasn't getting it. So I was just trying to talk to her. I was like, what did you do this weekend? And I could get through that in Japanese. I was like, what did you do this weekend? How are you? She told me she went and sang with her sister. I was like, oh. And she told me she loves to sing. I was like, oh, you love to sing. We've all heard that verse over and over again. Teach them with psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. So I was like, I've got an idea. And I went and grabbed 2 psalm books. And I came back and sat down. I was like, Akiko, I'm just going to teach you how to sing songs. She's like, okay. So we flipped open to a song, and I sang it. And then we'd sing it again. She'd sing it with me. And, now I think there's those classic songs we all know that, like, mean something to us. And you can tell certain songs that, like, these really mean something to the people who wrote them. And as we sang together, she could tell that they meant something. And finally, the preacher came up, and I forget where he was, but he came up, and I told him, I said, here's what we're going to do. I was like, I'll teach her a song, and then you explain to her what the song means to us. And that's what we'll do. So he's like, okay. So we sat down, and so every week on Friday, she always came on Fridays, we'd just sit down and learn songs for an hour. And he'd explain to her the meaning of the songs. And never underestimate the power of music, because you could see in this lady's eyes, she was an older lady, I think she was either 65 or 70, but you could see in her eyes that she, like, knew these songs meant something to us, and she, like, wanted to know what these songs meant. and we'd explain to her the songs, and I think she really enjoyed it. So thank you for listening to this, and thank you for supporting me, and thank you for supporting us at the Student Center. And I'm just glad I got to talk to you guys about this, and I'm incredibly blessed to have this opportunity to go on this trip and study the things that I get to study in school. And so I hope that I'm able to do something more with this. I hope I'm able to go over there and teach English. And so just, if you would, please pray for all these people up here that I've mentioned, and if you forget their names, God knows their names. So if you would just pray for Japan. Thank you.
Questions for Kaleb?
What happens to the rice at the end of the day? Did she go get that off? Or did it just disappear?
They put out a new bowl of rice every day.
So even though it was not gone, God didn't come and ask you, they still kept putting something out every day.
Yes, I think it's more of the sentiment, not so much that he actually eats it.
Well,
That-
think about Santa Claus.
Right. That'd be kind of devious if someone like snuck around every day and he ate everybody's rice just to keep it going. But no.
Anybody else?
How did, it seems like a materialistic culture like ours. Do you think that's a big problem in getting people's minds open to the gospel?
I honestly think more than anything, it's like a weird mix. And so that's part of the problem, is that like there's a lot of things I want to do. Like if you walk downtown Saturday night, everybody is out getting sloppy drunk, sloppy falling over drunk. We saw one girl wreck her bike and like wipe out because she was so drunk. And so that's part of it. But I think the hardest part is honestly just their traditions. Like they know what they've been taught all their lives. And to like go against their parents or their in-laws is like a huge disgrace. And even some Buddhists, if you become a Christian, you can't be buried in the same cemetery that your parents or your wife is buried in. And that's like a really big deal to them.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Caleb. Thank you.
I spent years studying about Latin American missions. 7 years on the mission field, and I've never seen anybody as new to a mission work to be as well knowledged about the culture and the people, to stand up and tell like you've done after 6 weeks. And I know you have studied this for a long time. You need to go back. You really do. And we need to send you. You know the hearts of the people better than anybody else. I have a question, though. Why do you think that people are so long in responding? That's something maybe to ponder more than anything else. The 12 years with that one fellow, and he's still taking it in. And I'm thinking that you've got an ocean to deal with, and it's going to take a long time to break through. But when you do, I think you'll penetrate some really quality people. That's different than maybe Latin America, that are quick to respond and that are quick to be somewhere else. And this is something in cultural missiology that we learned very quickly, that those that respond quick also respond to something else quick, and they don't stay very long, where you have a good foundation. You're like, thank you. That was really interesting. Isaiah chapter 6. Isaiah is talking about a vision that he has seen with the seraphim that are flying around the Lord and shouting out, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts." You move through part of that, and then in verse 8, he says, "And I also heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send? And who will go for us? And then I said, Here am I, send me." And then he said, "Go and tell these people, keep on hearing but do not understand, keep on seeing but they do not perceive. there's a duty we have to keep on teaching. Sometimes they'll listen and sometimes they won't. I appreciate what Kaleb referred to several times, but I'm planting seeds. And if we understand that that is our job is not to make plants, but to plant seeds. And the farmer realizes that. When he's out there, he's not thinking he's making plants, but he's planting the seeds that will grow into a plant when God gets through allowing it to grow. And every culture is different in its ways, and we understand that, and ours is different. We have a job. And the job is in our backyard, and the job is across the world. To keep on sowing, to keep on reaching out. And when we've got young people that are willing to go and doing such a good job in defining what's happening and knowing it, I think we need to make sure they get that. And we can't afford to do the whole thing, but we'll do that. And I'm so grateful for Central. So many ways we're involved in doing a lot of good things. Brenda, bless her heart, a year ago talking about going to Nicaragua. And that was her original goal, after having spent some time there, to go back and do something there. And I said, I'll have to get there. And I said, we'll just see. She kept saying, if the Lord wants me to go, He'll make a way. And got a text from her just right after church service this morning. She's had a good week. She had a couple rough days. I asked her, what was that about? I said, were you sick or just having a hard time with the language? And she said, well, kind of homesick. I think she misses Central. I know she misses the CSC. We got a good thing going here, and we're creating a lot of good things with God's help in this whole process. I'm grateful for it. Tonight, as we think about spiritual matters and who we are as Christians, let's remember that we've got a job to perform. And if there's someone that's not right with the Lord, someone needs prayer, someone that needs to repent of something, someone maybe that's never responded to Christianity that needs to be baptized, we're here to help, as always. If you need to come, we're right down in front is the place. While we stand and sing, please come. Days of doom with